Okay, we have Prof. Lumumba. Prof. Patrick Lumumba of Kenya had something very interesting to say. Listen to this.
Sometimes I wish, and I'm saying this seriously, that we too had a nuclear weapon, because that is what Europe and America understands. Thank you.
Wow. You hear that? Prof. Lumumba of Kenya had some very harsh words to say. What's up, everybody? Hope you're doing good. Thank you very much for stopping by. You very much appreciate it. I'm Zack. It's your first time. Please feel free to join us. Click on the button, subscribe. I'm sure we're going to love each other. This is one big family. No doubt about it. We certainly going to find something interesting. Okay, we discuss about many things. We talk about Africa. We talk about the diaspora. We are brothers. I know you're in the States, you're in Jamaica, in the Caribbean. It doesn't matter where you are. We love you. So we need to come together in order to win this battle. Let's watch. Very interesting interview. Prof. Lumumba, Pan-Africanist, he tells it like it is. Doesn't match his words. Let's go.
Thank those who have spoken before me and remind us that interference in Africa started with slavery. When slavery had lost its value, it graduated into colonization. And that is the context in which Berlin must be seen when the European powers sat in Berlin and divided the continent of Africa into spheres of influence. When colonization had lost its luster through a combination of certain realities and agitation from the continent, we regained our independence. But as John Henry Clark, that great African-American, said, we regained independence by mimicking European governance systems. And he rightly says, no African country will ever succeed on the basis of those systems.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So they came to Africa, they took over the countries, they took over the continent, they subdivided into small countries, okay, because Africa was as a whole a continent, not really a country. They created different countries. Africa has 54 countries today, but that was not originally Africa. They took a big continent, substituted into small different spaces that they call countries. Then after beating the living crap out of everybody, after mistreating everybody and all that stuff, the story, they say, okay, now you are independent. In the 1960s, you are independent. You are free. You can do whatever you like. You can do your own vote, elections. You are a free country. You can do your own things. But you have to apply what we call democracy. You have to apply our capitalism. You have to apply our system. You have to apply our social institutions as we ask you to do. If you don't do it, then you're not democratic. So it means we're giving you independence. You can be free. You can play with each other. But we need to overlook what you're doing. That's what he's saying. Let's go.
After that, the neo-colonial project was instituted. And all of us will remember Kwame Nkrumah's book, Neo-Colonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism. And he there says the most dangerous. We are now in a neo-colonial stage when the European powers are at their most diabolical, when the Americans are at their most diabolical. And it's not lost on me that they'll be meeting in Hiroshima next week as the G7. And how do they interfere? They interfere militarily. They ensure that you in the military are trained in Sandhurst, are trained in West Point, so they affect your mind.
What's very interesting here is Prof. Lumumba, I love his voice, a really, really great voice. If you listen to him without really knowing the context of things he says, you may think he's anti-white. You may think he doesn't like white people. Absolutely not. That's not the case. He just wants the freedom of Africans. He wants Africans to run their own countries. He wants Africans to grow with whatever they have under their soil. They want Africans to profit from the riches that the Most High has given to them. He wants Africans to be Africans authentically. Whatever we call democracy is not an African thing. It's not a system that's originally from Africa. So we cannot be judged based on things we did not create, things that were forced upon us. Let's go.
They have interfered diplomatically, sometimes through gunboat diplomacy. And that is why you see sometimes your typical European ambassador treats our heads of states in a condescending manner.
Absolutely. Yeah, you will see an European and American ambassador talk to the president in a way that is, really unbelievable. I don't know. You remember a while back in South Africa, the American ambassador that accused South Africa of sending weapons to Russia. Do you remember that? Yes. He said, I can swear to my life that South Africa is sending weapons to Russia.
We are confident that weapons were loaded onto that vessel, and I would bet my life on the accuracy of that assertion.
Really disrespectful. You'll never see an African ambassador open his mouth like that in public without going through the normal procedures, the normal way of talking to government. You can't do that. And again, month before that, the American embassy in South Africa came forward saying that people should be very careful because some terrorists are going to plant a bomb in Sandton. Sandton is the richest area of Africa. That's Sandton, richest, with the most millionaires in Africa. He said in Sandton, they're going to place a bomb and people should be afraid without consulting with the security service of the country hosting them. You hear that? So you are hosted in South Africa. You are a foreign country. You are a foreign ambassador. But you have the courage to say you must be careful because in public, you must be very careful because they're going to be planting a bomb in Sandton, creating mayhem among the people without consulting the country people, the owner of the country, the security services of the country. You'd never do that. Normally, you should go see them and say, listen, this is what we've got as intelligence. How can you use this to protect our own people? You don't go, you know what I mean? So, in many ways, even though Africa's got freedom, okay, it's not really freedom. They still choose who your president's going to be. If that president works for them and allows them to come in the country and steal stuff, take gold, diamonds, lithium, and all that stuff for free or a very small tax, then he's a cool president. It's fine. Doesn't matter how bad he treats his people. It's okay. But if the president stands for the people, the president tries to build his own country, try to push a narrative that pushes his people forward, they're going to try to find stories. They're going to go dig in, find stories that calls him undemocratic, calls him, dictator and all that stuff. That's what they've done with Museveni. That's what they did with Idi Amin. The same thing was done with Gaddafi. Libya was one of the best countries in the world. There was no tax being paid in that country. Nobody paid tax, so you work. 100% of your money is yours. Yes. Okay, fuel costs almost nothing. Libya is a country where people got land for free, and when you get a land, you want to be in agriculture, they're going to find you a trainer, a coach to teach you how to cultivate your stuff, how to sell things, how to become a farmer for free. Libya was a country where if you had a disease that need to be attended to in a different country, or you had a surgery that needs to be done on you on a different country, the government will take care of that, pay for everything, your trips, your family, your medicine and everything. That's Libya. But because they didn't like that, they called the man a dictator. They found stories to destroy his. That's what it is. They give you freedom, but freedom provided you apply our way of thinking. If you don't apply our way of thinking, then you're not free. Then you're a dictator. They're going to bring you democracy. Let's go.
They interfere through institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank. They interfere by ensuring that our economic infrastructure is beholden to theirs through dollarization. They interfere through education. They interfere by influencing our processes, by lending us advisors who tell us what to do. The neo-colonial project is alive and well.
Interesting. They interfere with advisors. You know, if you go to World Bank asking for money, okay, World Bank is supposed to be an institution where you can go ask for money for your country. Let's say you want to build hospitals, or you want to build schools, or you want to build houses for your people, you want to build roads. You can go to World Bank and say, listen, I need so much amount of money, which I will reimburse, obviously, so I can build schools, or so I can build hospitals, so I can build old age home. World Bank will give you the money, provided that, number one, you are democratic according to them. Okay, so they choose what are the criteria of democracy. Number two, they're going to impose you an advisor. So this advisor will tell you how you're going to spend the money. So let me just try to get this very clear. Okay, you not giving me the money. You are lending the money to me. Money I have to pay with interest. But you want to impose me an advisor. Okay, so this man has to advise you on how you need to spend money, how much money you can take in one go, how much money can be spent, which company you need to use to build the road. They choose the companies for you that's going to build the road. So you cannot take your own money and fund your own company and your own people building the road. They will say to you, you want to build schools or roads or hospital. We have the companies. We're going to give you the money, but provided you use the companies that we directed you to. They have advisor for everything. I mean, in Africa, even though we are supposed to be free, whenever an African country holds an election, Europe has to send advisors or observers. You know what I mean? Yeah, they have to send observers to come and observe your election to confirm whether your election was fair or not. So it's up for them to say your election was a real election or not. Now, you tell me how many times an African country has sent people to go to Europe and go be an advisor or an observer of elections. Absolutely not. Are we really free in Africa? Is Africa really free of its shackles? That's a big question. Let's go.
And it is at its most dangerous, and we Africans must smell the coffee. If we don't, they are going to continue to interfere. How else do they interfere? Through NGOs, Danida, CEDA, UK Aid, USAID. These are Trojan horses that are introduced into our countries for the purpose of influencing our processes. And they infiltrate our institutions. Right now, if you look at the African Development Bank, look at the shareholding. It's Americans, it's Germans, it's Japanese, it's the French. And the Europeans have done their bit. They also interfere through post-colonial institutions.
Interesting. So the African Bank is got shareholders, and the shareholders are not predominantly Africans. The African Bank, the Bank of Africans, shareholders are Europeans. And you say you got a bank. It doesn't make sense. You can't decide for nothing for you guys. The NGOs are Trojan horse, like you say. NGOs come to Africa saying, listen, oh God, well, you guys have people living with HIV. We're going to bring you money for free. Okay, let's give you an example of Uganda. In Uganda received about $300 million a year for HIV people living with HIV, okay, for their treatments, for their training, and many other things. Now, as soon as the president of Uganda and the parliament of Uganda decided to vote a law that refuted that, does not authorize men to fall in love with other. You know what I'm saying? I can't say the full word. They said it's banned. You cannot do it publicly. You cannot import it into our country based on our tradition and our values. What did they do? The NGOs stopped sending the money. So NGOs, just think about it. NGOs were supposed to be there to help the people, to help the sick people, to help the people who live with the disease. Now, all of a sudden, because some people in parliament decide to abolish that whatever, now you decide as an NGO to punish the people that are sick. Were you really helping them, or you were just using that fund as a, as a way of negotiation, of manipulation? It's crazy. Let's go.
The Commonwealth of Independent Nations, they are not sovereign states, former French-speaking nations. These are the instruments that they interfere through. And how do we then deal with this situation? We Africans must now begin to recognize, and this was recognized as early as 1963, and the chair of the commission is here. They'll be celebrating 60 years in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And 60 years ago, on the 24th day of May, Kwame Nkrumah warned us. He said, if we are not united, they are going to interfere with us militarily. They are going to interfere with our economy. They are going to interfere with our agriculture. They are going to interfere with our health. Our duty, and I hope that when African heads of states and government meet in Addis next week, it will not be another jamboree at which pro forma speeches are read. I hope it will be an occasion to give meaning to Africa Agenda 2063. I hope it will be an occasion to give meaning to Africa Continental Free Trade Area. I hope it will be an occasion to revitalize the Malabo Declaration, the Maputo Declaration, the Yamoussoukro Declaration. In other words, we Africans, as I conclude, we Africans must stop operating in silos. Rwanda alone will not confront them. Burundi alone will not confront them. But if we go through the regional bodies and ultimately the African Union, we may indeed succeed in putting away this bulwark. And remember, it is no longer just Europe. There is a new scramble for Africa. The Chinese are here. The Turks are here. The Qataris are here. All of them are coming back. And the military bases that you see here is telling you that if you don't behave, we are going to use force.
Very interesting.
Sometimes I wish.
Very interesting. The military bases of these countries, of China, France, America, Russia, and all of these other countries, why are they in Africa for? They're in Africa to remind you, if you don't behave, we're going to bomb you. We're going to beat you up. Okay, why aren't African military bases in Europe? Why? Why do you allow them to come into your country? Because history tells us that when they come, it's easy, but they never depart easily. You saw how hard it was in Mali to get them out, to get the French out. Do you remember how difficult it was in Burkina Faso to ask the French people to leave? Do you remember how difficult it was in Niger to ask them to leave? They refused to go. Why do you allow them in?
And I'm saying this seriously, that we too had a nuclear weapon, because that is what Europe and America understands. Thank you.
Right. So if Africa had a nuclear weapon, we'd be respected. So Prof. Lumumba Patrice says, if Africa had a nuclear weapon, we'd be respected. Do you agree to that? I think it's a very interesting point. I mean, what is the reason why they don't attack North Korea? You realize how much they attack Iraq, how they attack Afghanistan, how they attack Gaddafi, how they blocked Cuba, how they blocked Venezuela into economy. Why don't they do the same? I mean, at least physical attack to North Korea. Because they know North Korea, you can't play with them. They are very strong, very ready militarily. Why? Because criminals only fear criminal actions. Violent people only fear violence. That's what it is. If you see a criminal in the street looking for a house to rob, he's probably going to choose a house where he knows there's no gun inside. When he knows in this area people most likely have guns in the houses, he's not going to enter. It's very simple. I'll give you an example of South Africa. South Africa, people are allowed to carry, you know what I'm saying? Okay. So a lot of white fellas have that stuff in their house. Now, in many areas, people they will go into houses of people that look just like them because they know most of them don't have this. The criminals of one side will only go to that specific side because they know people in those houses don't have this. They don't have means of defenses. Very rarely you see them going to a white people's house because they know most of them. So, criminal fear acts of criminal. Violence people fear violence. Is it right to say Africa should acquire nuclear weapon so we can have a level of respect? Thank you very much, fellas. It's always a great pleasure to talk to you. Let me know how you feel about this. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be back. Don't go without leaving your comments. God bless.